Wow, such a pleasure to be joined by Michael Yen, Dr. Michael Yen. Physical to Metaphysical in 4 Steps in One Giant Leap. That's the name of his book. And we had a fabulous off-air conversation. I mean, really, he could fill up probably 3 of my shows talking about just his foreign service and some of the amazing things that he's done. But it's enabled him to see life, I think, from lots of different angles. So, Dr. Yen, thanks for coming on.
Kate, it's really nice to talk to you again.
So let's talk about this. You emphasized to me how important it is. Why the book? Why'd you do this book? Why did you feel this need to do physical to metaphysical? What does that mean?
This is my first book, and I really never felt the need to write a book. What I felt was the need to tell people about what happened to me, how I went from physical to metaphysical. I mean, that in itself already sounds kind of far out. Like, what does that even mean? And I'm here to tell you as clearly as I can what happened to me and why I even felt the need to go from, quote, physical to metaphysical. A lot of stuff happened to me in my life. I saw a ghost. My dad died when I was in my 30s. Things that I just couldn't deal with the mindset that I had, which I think from at the time was very typical of someone who grew up in the States. This was very scientific, very materialistic. Everything has a material explanation. You see a ghost, well, there's a material explanation. You just don't know it. It's like, it'll come later. Just don't worry about it. And that's very much how I dealt with seeing a ghost with my friend. So I wasn't hallucinating. We saw it at the same time. This is in Taiwan. So maybe because of the traditional culture there, seeing a ghost was not so weird. When we told people, they're all just like, oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, oh, that place. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like in America, it's more far out, but in Taiwan, it was totally just expected. So I didn't really have to deal with it. But a few years later, after that incident, my dad died. And that knocked me for a loop. I couldn't really deal with it. Fortunately, it wasn't like an accident. He had a stroke, but he was in the hospital for quite some time. I was able to fly back from Japan, where I was working at the U.S. Embassy at the time. But that really was the event that broke my materialistic viewpoint. I couldn't deal with it, and it needed something else. And so for me personally, that was the need, the drive for going from just a physical orientation to a more metaphysical one, where unseen things, spiritual things, has a role, could offer an explanatory power in my life to make my life work better. And a few years after my dad died, I was in China working at the American consulate in Guangzhou. And through a happenstance, I find myself enrolled into the inaugural Jungian PhD program in China while I was still working as a PhD. And like you said, that's another program by itself right there. But long story short, being enrolled in Jungian psychology and learning all about that turned my life into a more metaphysical orientation. But that alone didn't do it. A lot of other life experiences needed to happen. But eventually, I was secure enough that I felt I need to tell other people what happened, how I did it, and to try to help other people maybe do it quicker.
And what I like about your book, Dr. Yen, is that you lay it out specifically. And as I said with the title, Physical to Metaphysical in 4 Steps in One Giant Leap, you can get it on Amazon, is then you talk about these 4 steps. So tell us about that.
Before I go into that, one quick thing about it's not just a personal need. There's obviously a global need for everyone to go from a physical orientation to a more metaphysical. And I'll just cite one example. In both sociology and anthropology, there's the dictum that whatever society pays a lot of attention to, like if there's a lot of terms for something, that's where the focus of that society is. Like supposedly the Eskimos have 70 words for ice, snow. Well, in America, we have 170 plus terms for crazy. There's 50 kinds of phobia, 50 kinds of this and that, and it's never going to end. Every year, they're coming up with new terms, new ways of splicing crazy. That to me is a sign that the whole orientation is wrong. To keep going down that way is only going to generate more of the same thing. Now, to turn it around would be to stop looking for physical solutions or physical causes to all this insanity. Is inside. The answer is metaphysical. So 4 steps, what are they? Well, the first step is just to realize you're not material. You're not your body. So the first step is, as I say in the book, you're not your body. That's the first realization. And out of that flows a freedom from a lot of fear that people carrying around. If on a deep being level, you can accept and understand that you're not your body, well, getting sick and dying is not so fearful. And dying is something now you can look at and think about and wrap your head around. Whereas I dare say 90% of people turn away from that very consciously. They don't want to think about it. Anything that reminds them of that is just scary, and they turn away from it psychologically. And that in itself is going to breed a kind of depression and sickness as you get older, as the event draws nearer, inevitably. Well, that's not a good way of being, to face fear, to have fear for something you must face. So that's the first step, to go through a lot. And I lay it out in the book, certain realizations, certain observations that will get you there. Second step, you're not your emotions either. So emotions are less physical, but you can still feel them. So the first three steps really are very simple, because these are things that as you do them, you could really feel it. The first step is you're not your thoughts. Less physical than emotions, but you can still feel them. Thoughts have weight. You can literally feel them shifting in your mind. When you reach a certain level of understanding, it is like, light coming in or veil being lifted. We've all felt these things in our lives, I'm sure. These are things that when I talk to people, they immediately understand. Like if you have an emotional breakthrough, it's like a dam bursting. You can literally feel a physical movement inside yourself. Obviously not like a feeling like inside your brain or in your arm, not like that. But you feel emotions, I guess, in every cell of your body. So the understanding is we live our life carrying all these information, all these memories, as if they're everything. It's like a rainbow spectrum, Beyond the rainbow, there's a lot more energy and information out there in the ultraviolet, in the infrared. What we see is a very small part. And everything we've experienced since birth, through our five senses, is like that, within the rainbow. And if you don't understand and allow that there's way more beyond that, what I'm calling the metaphysical, your life will be extremely limited. You will think it's great, you got all the colors, but something is always going to be missing. So the fourth step is to understand you're not your body, you're not your emotions, you're not your thoughts. Well, you are energy, and everything is energy. This universe, everything is energy. So that's the fourth step. A good way of visualizing this for our technological times is that your body is the hardware. Your emotions is the firmware. Your thoughts are the software. And your energy is the electricity that makes everything go. Well, what's the fifth level? What's the big leap into? That's the person using the computer. It's not in the computer. Everything we can experience here that I've talked about from birth since then, it's like you're seeing it on the computer screen. Your body is the computer, you got your firmware, you got your software, you got electricity, everything's going great, but our entire lives is really, if you're living materialistically, everything is prescribed within the limits of that screen. All your emotions, all your highs, all your achievements, all your sadness, all your tragedy, everything is just in that screen. But spiritually, soul, I don't want to use these words because they come so loaded with people from different religious backgrounds. And my whole approach is to say, my approach is actually kind of materialistic, if you will, because I'm trying to take people from where they are right now, sitting here, or where they are listening to this, physical, to go, look, a little bit lower, less substantial is your emotional self, a little bit, let's go the other way, a little bit lighter, less material now is your thoughts, speed of thought, faster than the speed of light, right? So great. But still, it's still physical. You, everyone need to go all the way, past the electricity, all the way out of the computer, to our real being, to the person out there trying to do their signal into the computer, into this physical body of where we are now. It's like the saying, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. Well, that means our spiritual self is not in this human experience. None of that is here. It's all in this metaphysical realm, trying to get a signal to get us to move the arm the right way, to feel the right way, to love the right way, to do all that the right way. And we're struggling to translate that impulse into our physical life, but most of that is not here. So the way to get healthy, the way to get the avatar to move right and not be like, oh, creaky and not getting the signal, which is how most people's lives are lived. Most people are not getting a high-speed broadband signal from their spiritual self and everything is just going zoom. There are moments like that in everyone's life. Even the homeless guy, I'm sure, can remember a moment or a time when, hey, everything was going great that day. That's not due to some physical reason. That's not because he found $100 on the street. It's because the connection to your spiritual source is flowing good in that moment. So let's get to the biggest part of the book, which is the giant leap, the one giant leap. And as we mentioned before, very few people go into the mechanics of how to meditate. I've myself, as I was seeking, listened to a lot of different teachers, and I learned a lot from them. But ultimately, I had to kind of find my own way to meditate.
All right, we'll be back with more of Michael Yen here just in a second on the show.